Welcome to HOA Spot. Keep your phone ready for this one. I am standing in my own driveway when I hear the rattle of a towhook chain behind me and spin around to see Brenda Collins, the Lakeview Crest Parking Compliance Association Landscaping Committee lead, waving a clipboard in a clear plastic sleeve at a tow truck driver who is already backing toward my car. She is yelling something about common area violations and unauthorized overnight parking. I am a firefighter on rotating shifts in Ottawa, Ontario, and I moved here 6 months ago because the neighborhood looked quiet and the price was right. The HOA name should have been a red flag. Lakeview Crest Parking Compliance Association, not Homeowners Association, Parking Compliance. They take it seriously. Brenda is screaming at me now, her brown, shoulder-length, wavy hair whipping around under her white visor, red windbreaker zipped to her chin, even though it is barely cool. "If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive," she snaps, jabbing a finger at my front bumper. I ask what she is talking about. This is my driveway, my house, my car. She shakes her head like I am a toddler who just colored on the wall. "Your driveway encroaches 6 inches into the common planting strip," she says, tapping the clipboard. "That makes your vehicle partially on association property. Overnight parking on common area is prohibited per Section 12-4. I took the fine notice without flinching because I knew what it would trigger. I do not say that part out loud yet. I just ask if she is joking. She is not joking. The tow driver, a guy in a stained hoodie with the company name on the back, looks uncomfortable. He glances at me, then at Brenda, then at the house number on my garage. "Lady," he says slowly, "this looks like a private driveway to me." Brenda cuts him off. "Your paperwork is cute. Mine has a letterhead," she says, pulling a stapled packet from the clipboard and waving it at him. He shrugs and keeps backing up. I pull out my phone and start recording. Brenda immediately steps closer, her face filling my screen, mouth open in a yell. "You are harassing a volunteer," she shouts. "That is also a violation. I can add that to your file." I ignore her and call my brother. He is disabled, lives with me, and depends on me for transport to his medical appointments. If they tow my car, I am stuck. I cannot let that happen. The phone rings twice before he picks up. I tell him what is happening. He asks if I am serious. I tell him yes, deadly serious, and to start looking up the HOA bylaws on the county website while I deal with this. Brenda is still talking, something about how she has been doing this for 11 years and nobody questions her authority. The tow driver clicks the wheel lift lock into place under my rear axle, and I feel my stomach drop. I step between Brenda and the truck. I tell the driver he needs to stop. He looks at Brenda. She holds up the clipboard again and says the authorization is signed and notarized. I ask to see it. She angles it away. "I do not need to show you anything," she says. "You are not a board member. You are not even current on your landscaping assessment." I have no idea what she is talking about. I paid every fee they sent me. She smiles, a tight little smile that does not reach her eyes. "Check your portal login," she says. "You will see the balance." Then she turns back to the driver and tells him to finish the job. I feel the anger rising, but I keep my voice level. I ask her what landscaping assessment. She sighs like I am wasting her time. "The emergency resod levy from April," she says. "Everyone got the notice. If you did not read your email, that is on you." I pull up my email on my phone while the driver hooks the safety chain. I search for anything from Lakeview Crest. I find 3 messages. 2 are about guest parking decals. 1 is about the annual meeting. Nothing about a landscaping assessment. I show Brenda the screen. She does not even look. That is your spam filter, she says. Not my problem. If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive. I ask how much the fee is. She flips a page on the clipboard. $240, she says, plus the $50 late penalty, plus the tow fee and storage, which you will owe the yard directly. I do the math in my head. Over $500 just like that. I ask if I can pay it right now to stop the tow. She shakes her head. You are past the grace period, she says. Once the truck is on site, the tow is mandatory. You can dispute it at the next board meeting in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. My brother has appointments. I have shifts. I need my car. I tell her this is insane. She shrugs. Your lack of planning is not an emergency for the association, she says. The tow driver finishes the chain and climbs back into the cab. I hear the hydraulic whine as the lift starts to raise my rear wheels. I step in front of the truck and hold up my phone. I tell the driver I am recording this and I will be filing a complaint with the tow company and the city. He stops. Brenda steps around me and knocks on his window. He rolls it down. She tells him to ignore me. He looks at me, then at her, then sighs and puts the truck in neutral. Lady, he says, if this guy is saying it is his driveway and you are saying it is common area, I need to see a survey or a plat map. Otherwise, I am not touching it. Brenda goes red. She starts yelling about breach of contract and how his company has an exclusive tow agreement with the HOA. He shrugs again. I am not risking a lawsuit over 6 inches, he says. Call my supervisor if you want. He lowers the lift and unclips the chain. Brenda is shaking. She points at me and says this is not over. She tells the driver she will be reporting him to his company and the HOA will find a new vendor. He drives off without another word. I am still recording. Brenda turns to me and says I just cost the association its enforcement capability. She says the board will hear about this. She says I will be personally liable for any violations that occur because the tow truck was delayed. I ask if she is seriously threatening me with liability for stopping an illegal tow. She does not answer. She just walks to her car, a white sedan with a Lakeview Crest Parking Compliance Association decal on the rear window, and a stack of blank tow authorization slips visible on the passenger seat through the glass. I take a photo of the stack before she drives away. I go inside and check the HOA portal. It takes 3 tries to log in because I have not used it in months. When I finally get in, I see a line item dated April 9th. Emergency landscaping assessment, $240. I click on it. The description says resod of common area planting strips damaged by winter freeze. I scroll down. There is no attached invoice, no vendor name, no before and after photos, just a line item and a due date that was 2 weeks ago. I check my email again, still nothing. I search my spam folder, nothing. I call the management company. The automated menu tells me the portal is down for maintenance and will be back online Monday. Today is Friday. I hang up and call again, pressing 0 to try to reach a human. The line rings 15 times and then disconnects. I call a 3rd time and leave a voicemail explaining the situation and asking for confirmation that I received notice of the assessment. Then I sit down and start going through the HOA bylaws my brother pulled up on the county website. Section 12-4. Overnight parking on common area is prohibited except for authorized guest vehicles with valid decals. Section 6-2. Common area is defined as any land designated on the recorded plat map as association property, including but not limited to planting strips, sidewalks, mailbox clusters, and retention ponds. I pull up the plat map on the county website. My driveway is entirely within my lot boundary. The planting strip Brenda mentioned is on the other side of the curb, a narrow strip of grass between the street and the sidewalk. My car is not even close to it. I take screenshots of everything. Then I go outside and measure the distance from my car to the curb. 14 inches. I measure the width of the planting strip. 18 inches. There is no overlap. I take photos with my phone, making sure the house number is visible in the frame. My brother comes out and asks what happened. I explain the whole thing. He shakes his head. She is lying, he says. Obviously, I agree, but I tell him it does not matter if she is lying. She has a clipboard and a title and a stack of blank tow authorization slips. I have photos and a recording. If it comes down to her word against mine at a board meeting, I do not know who wins. He suggests I talk to a local attorney he knows through family, someone who used to handle HOA disputes before he retired. I text the attorney and explain the situation. He calls me back 20 minutes later. He listens to the whole story, asks a few questions about the bylaws and the assessment notice, and then tells me the first thing I need to do is request a formal hearing to dispute the fee. He says the second thing I need to do is file a written complaint with the management company about Brenda attempting an unauthorized tow. He says if the portal is down, I need to deliver paper proof in person today, because the management company will use any delay as an excuse to side with the HOA. He gives me the address of their office and tells me to go now. I grab my folder of screenshots and photos, get in my car, and drive to the management company office. It is a low brick building in an office park 20 minutes away. I walk in and the receptionist tells me the HOA department is closed on Fridays after 3. It is 3:15. I ask if anyone is still here. She looks at her computer and shakes her head. I tell her this is an emergency. She asks what kind of emergency. I explain the tow attempt. She looks skeptical. She says if it is a parking violation, I need to take it up with the HOA board. I tell her the HOA tried to tow me from my own driveway using a fake assessment fee, and I need to file a formal complaint. She hesitates. Then she picks up her phone and calls someone. A woman in a blazer comes out a minute later. She introduces herself as the assistant manager and asks what is going on. I explain the whole thing again. She listens, frowning. She asks if I have proof. I show her the photos, the recording, the plat map screenshots. She takes notes. Then she says she will add it to the file and someone will follow up on Monday. I ask if there is anything she can do to flag Brenda Collins as a problem before she tries this again. She says she cannot comment on individual board members, but she will make sure the complaint is reviewed. I thank her and leave. On the way home, I stop at a hardware store and buy a cheap dash camera. I install it in my car as soon as I get back, angling it to cover the driveway and the street. Then I check the mail. There is a hand-delivered envelope with the Lakeview Crest logo on it. Inside is a new notice. Violation of guest parking protocol. $50 fine. I read it twice. I have not had any guests in 2 weeks. I call my brother. He comes outside and we walk around the property. There is an orange cone knocked on its side near the curb about 10 feet from my driveway. I have no idea where it came from. I take a photo, then I check the dash camera footage. The camera just finished syncing, and the earliest clip is from 20 minutes ago after I installed it. I curse under my breath. I text the attorney and tell him about the new notice. He replies immediately, "Do not pay it. Dispute it in writing. Document everything. Keep the cone as evidence if it is still there tomorrow." That night, I draft a dispute letter. I attach photos of the plat map, the measurements, the cone, and stills from the recording of Brenda and the tow truck. I explain that I have never received notice of the landscaping assessment and request a copy of the original notice and the vendor invoice. I explain that the guest parking violation is impossible because I have not had guests. I request a formal hearing. I print 3 copies, one for the management company, one for the board, and one for my file. I also print a copy of the complaint log entry from the management company portal before it went offline. The entry is obviously written in Brenda's voice. Resident at 42 Lakeshore Drive repeatedly parks in common area planting strip despite multiple verbal warnings. Request immediate enforcement action. It is dated 3 days ago. I never received any verbal warnings. I screenshot the entry and add it to my folder. Saturday morning, I wake up to someone knocking on my door. It is a woman in her 50s with a clipboard. She introduces herself as the HOA treasurer and says she is here to inspect my driveway for encroachment. I ask if she has a warrant. She looks confused. This is an HOA matter, she says. We do not need warrants. I tell her I do not consent to an inspection and she is welcome to review the county plat map like everyone else. She frowns and makes a note on her clipboard. Then she asks if I am refusing to cooperate with the association. I tell her I am cooperating fully by following the bylaws, which do not grant the HOA authority to inspect private property without notice and consent. She makes another note and leaves. I watch her walk down the street and stop at the house 2 doors down. A couple is sitting on their porch watching the whole thing like it is a show. The woman on the porch waves at me. I wave back. The treasurer talks to them for a minute, gesturing toward my house, and then moves on. I spend the rest of the morning reviewing the HOA financial records on the county website. HOAs in Ontario are required to file annual budgets and audits with the county clerk. I pull up the last 3 years. The landscaping budget is consistent year to year, about $12,000 annually. I look for any line item related to emergency resod or planting strip repair. Nothing. I check the board meeting minutes. Nothing. I check the contractor disclosures. The HOA uses a company called Greenscape Solutions for landscaping. I call them. The receptionist transfers me to the account manager. I explain that I am a homeowner in Lakeview Crest and I am trying to verify an invoice for resod work in April. He puts me on hold. 2 minutes later, he comes back and says they did not do any resod work in April. Their last project for Lakeview Crest was lawn aeration in March. I ask if he can send me a written statement confirming that. He hesitates. I explain that I am disputing a fee and I need documentation. He says he will email me an invoice summary for the past 6 months. I thank him and hang up. The email arrives an hour later. It is a PDF with a list of dates, project descriptions, and amounts. March 15th, lawn aeration, $1,100. February 8th, tree trimming, $850. January 21st, snow removal, $400. Nothing in April. Nothing about resod. I forward it to the attorney and add it to my folder. Then I check the dash camera. There is a new clip from an hour ago. Brenda is walking up my driveway, holding something. She stops at the curb, looks around, and places a small orange cone on the grass strip between the sidewalk and the street. Then she takes a photo with her phone and leaves. I replay the clip 3 times. She is planting evidence. I save the clip and text the attorney. He replies within minutes. That is gold. Keep it safe. If she tries anything else, you have her on video fabricating a violation. Sunday is quiet. I spend most of the day helping my brother with his physical therapy exercises and meal prep for the week. Around 4, I check the mail. There is another hand-delivered envelope. This one is thicker. Inside is a lien packet. Notice of intent to file lien for unpaid assessments and fines. Total amount due is now $630, including the original landscaping assessment, the guest parking fine, a new fine for failure to cooperate with an HOA inspection, and something called an administrative processing fee. The packet includes a breakdown with line items, a payment deadline of 72 hours, and a copy of the lien filing form with my name and address already filled in. I read the whole thing twice. The line items are a mix of real fees from months ago that I already paid and new mystery charges that have no documentation. I cross-reference everything with my bank statements. I paid the annual dues in January. I paid the mailbox cluster maintenance fee in March. The lien packet shows both as unpaid. I take photos of my bank statements showing the cleared checks and add them to my folder. Monday morning, I drive to the management company office as soon as it opens. The assistant manager is there. I show her the lien packet and the bank statements. She looks through everything and then pulls up my account on her computer. She frowns. "Your account shows a zero balance," she says. "These fees are not in our system." I ask what that means. She says it means someone generated the lien packet outside the management company system. She asks if I have the original envelope. I show her. It has the Lakeview Crest logo, but no management company return address. She makes a copy and says she is escalating this to her supervisor. She tells me not to pay anything until they investigate. I ask how long that will take. She says probably a week. I tell her I have 72 hours according to the packet. She says the packet is not valid if the fees are not in the system, so the deadline is not enforceable. I ask her to put that in writing. She prints a one-page letter on management company letterhead confirming that my account is current and no lien is authorized. I take it and leave. If you are enjoying this HOA nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of homeowners fighting back. At home, I scan the letter and email it to the attorney. He calls me 10 minutes later. "This is big," he says. "If Brenda is generating fake lien packets, that is fraud. You need to report it to the police." I ask if he is serious. He says absolutely. Filing a fraudulent lien is a crime. Even threatening to file one using false information can be actionable. He tells me to go to the police station and file a report. He says bring everything: the lien packet, the management company letter, the fake assessment notice, the dash camera clip of her planting the cone, all of it. I tell him I will go today. He says good, and he says when this is over, the board is going to have a serious problem because their compliance chair just committed fraud using association letterhead. That makes the HOA potentially liable. I drive to the police station. The officer at the desk listens to my story and asks if I have documentation. I show him the folder. He flips through it, pausing on the lien packet and the management company letter. He asks if I have tried resolving this with the HOA first. I explain that I have multiple times, and it has only escalated. He nods and says he will take a report. He asks me to write a statement summarizing everything. I spend 20 minutes writing it out by hand. He reviews it, asks a few clarifying questions, and then enters it into the system. He gives me a case number and says an investigator will follow up if they need more information. He also says that if the HOA tries to file the lien, I should bring the case number to the county clerk and they will flag it. I thank him and leave. When I get home, there is a car in my driveway, a truck actually, a contractor truck with ladders on the roof and a magnetic sign on the door. I do not recognize it. I park on the street and walk up. A man in a tool belt is standing by my garage looking at his phone. I ask if I can help him. He says he is here to trim the trees. I tell him I did not hire anyone to trim trees. He shows me a work order on his phone. The address matches mine. The work order is from the HOA signed by Brenda Collins. I tell him there is a mistake. He shrugs and says he just goes where they send him. I call the management company. The assistant manager answers. I explain the situation. She says she will call the landscaping contractor and tell them to stop. She asks if the truck is still there. I say yes. She says she will call right now and I should wait. The contractor gets a call a minute later. He listens, says okay a few times, and hangs up. He tells me the job is canceled and he is leaving. I thank him. He drives off. I call the attorney and tell him what just happened. He laughs, but it is not a happy laugh. She is trying to rack up charges against you, he says. Every time she sends a contractor to your property without authorization, she can claim you refused service and charge you a cancellation fee. It is a setup. I ask what I should do. He says document it, which I already did, and he says be ready for her to try something else. He also says the board meeting is this Thursday and I should plan to attend. He says bring copies of everything and be ready to present your case. He says the board might try to shut me down, but if I stay calm and stick to the facts, they will have a hard time justifying Brenda's behavior. He also says he can come with me if I want. I tell him yes, absolutely, I want him there. Tuesday, I get a call from the management company supervisor. She introduces herself and says she has reviewed my complaint and the lien packet. She confirms that the fees in the packet are not in the system, and the packet was not authorized by the management company. She says she has contacted the board president and requested an emergency meeting to address the issue. She also says Brenda Collins has been temporarily suspended from compliance activities pending an internal review. I ask what that means. She says it means Brenda is not authorized to issue violations, call tow trucks, or represent the HOA in any enforcement capacity until the review is complete. I ask how long the suspension will last. She says at least until the board meeting on Thursday, possibly longer, depending on what the board decides. I thank her and ask if she can email me a confirmation of the suspension. She says she will send it today. The email arrives that afternoon. It is a short message confirming the suspension and advising me to contact the management company directly if I receive any further notices from Brenda. I print it and add it to my folder. Then I check the dash camera. There is a clip from earlier in the day. Brenda is walking down the street holding a stack of papers. She stops in front of my house, looks at the camera, and then turns around and leaves. I zoom in on the freeze frame. The papers look like more violation notices. I save the clip. Wednesday, I spend the morning preparing for the board meeting. I print extra copies of everything. I organize the folder with tabs. I write a short script outlining the key points I want to make. The attorney calls and we go over the plan. He says I should start by summarizing the timeline, then present the evidence, and then request specific remedies, which include rescinding all the fake fees, removing Brenda from her compliance role permanently, and updating the HOA enforcement procedures to prevent this from happening again. He says I should also request that the board apologize in writing and reimburse me for the time and expenses I have incurred dealing with this. I ask if that is realistic. He says probably not, but it sets the tone. He says the board will try to minimize and deflect, and I need to keep bringing it back to the evidence. Thursday evening, I drive to the board meeting. It is held in the clubhouse, a small building near the neighborhood entrance. I arrive 15 minutes early. The attorney is already there. We sit in the back row. The room fills up slowly. I recognize a few faces, including the couple from the porch who watched the tow truck incident. Brenda is not here. The board president, a man in his 60s with a gray beard, calls the meeting to order at 7. He goes through the usual agenda items: budget updates, landscaping reports, architectural requests. Then he gets to new business. He says there is a homeowner dispute on the agenda and asks if I am present. I raise my hand. He asks me to come to the front. I bring my folder and the attorney follows me. The board president looks surprised. He asks if I am bringing legal representation. I say yes. He says this is not a legal proceeding, just an informal board meeting, and legal representation is not necessary. The attorney smiles and says he is here as an observer and advisor, and I am still the one presenting. The board president frowns but does not argue. I start by summarizing the timeline. I explain the tow truck incident, the fake landscaping assessment, the planted cone, the fraudulent lien packet, and the unauthorized contractor. I show the photos, the recordings, the dash camera clips, the management company letters, and the police report. I keep my voice calm and stick to the facts. The board members look uncomfortable. One of them, a woman in her 40s, asks if I have proof that Brenda planted the cone. I play the dash camera clip on my phone and pass it to her. She watches it, her face tightening. She passes the phone to the board president. He watches it and sets the phone down without comment. Another board member, a man in his 50s, asks why I did not just pay the fees and dispute them later. I explain that the fees were fake, not in the management company system, and paying them would have been admitting liability for charges I did not owe. I also explain that Brenda escalated every time I tried to resolve it, and I had to involve the police because she was committing fraud. The board president asks if I have finished. I say I have one more thing. I pull out a document I requested from the county clerk earlier in the week. It is a summary of HOA financial records for the past 3 years, cross-referenced with board meeting minutes and contractor invoices. I highlight the section on landscaping expenses. I explain that there is no record of any emergency resod project in April, no vendor invoice, and no board approval. I also highlight a section showing a pattern of discrepancies between reported expenses and actual contractor payments. I explain that the missing funds total over $4,000 across 3 years. I suggest that the board conduct an independent audit to determine where the money went. The room goes silent. The board president clears his throat. He says this is a serious allegation and the board will need time to review it. I tell him the management company already confirmed the lien packet was fraudulent and Brenda has been suspended. I ask what the board plans to do about it. He says they will discuss it in executive session and follow up with a written decision. I ask when. He says within 2 weeks. The attorney steps forward. He says 2 weeks is not acceptable given the severity of the issue. He says I have documented evidence of fraud, harassment, and financial misconduct, and the board has a fiduciary duty to act immediately. He says if the board does not take action, I will have no choice but to file a formal complaint with the county and consider legal action against the association. The board president looks at the other board members. They have a whispered conversation. Then he says they will hold an emergency executive session tonight and provide a written response by Monday. The meeting ends. I stay to talk to a few homeowners who approach me afterward. One of them says she has had similar issues with Brenda, including a guest parking fine for a visitor who was only there for 20 minutes. Another says he was threatened with a lien last year over a mailbox paint color that was supposedly not approved, even though he used the exact color from the HOA guidelines. They both ask if they can get copies of my evidence to use in their own disputes. I tell them to contact the management company and request a review of their accounts. The attorney suggests they also file complaints if they believe they were targeted unfairly. We exchange contact information and leave. Friday, I check my email obsessively. Nothing from the board. I call the management company. The assistant manager says the board met in executive session last night and they are preparing a response. She cannot give me details, but she says I should expect something soon. I ask if Brenda is still suspended. She says yes. I thank her and hang up. I spend the rest of the day catching up on work and helping my brother with errands. Around 6, I get an email. It is from the board president. The subject line says Board Decision, Homeowner Dispute. I open it. The email is 2 pages long. It starts with a summary of the meeting and my presentation. Then it says the board has reviewed the evidence and determined that there were procedural errors in the enforcement actions taken by Brenda Collins. The email says the landscaping assessment fee is rescinded, the guest parking fine is rescinded, and the lien packet is voided. It says Brenda Collins has been removed from her role as landscaping committee lead and will no longer have any enforcement authority. It says the board is commissioning an independent audit of HOA finances to address the discrepancies I identified. It says the board apologizes for the inconvenience and is implementing new procedures to prevent similar issues in the future. I read it twice. It is not perfect. The email does not mention reimbursement for my expenses. It does not mention any consequences for Brenda beyond losing her title, but it is a win. I forward it to the attorney. He calls me a few minutes later. This is good, he says. Not great, but good. You got the fees rescinded and she is out of power. The audit is huge. If they find what I think they will find, the board is going to have a much bigger problem. He says I should send a follow-up email requesting reimbursement for my legal consultation fees and my time. He says the board probably will not agree, but it is worth asking. I draft the email and send it. Then I open a beer and sit on the porch. My brother comes out and asks how it went. I tell him we won. He grins and clinks his soda can against my beer bottle. Saturday, I get a text from the management company assistant manager. She says the board received my reimbursement request and they are discussing it. She also says the audit has been scheduled and the auditor will be reviewing records from the past 5 years. She says if I have any additional documentation that might be relevant, I should send it to her. I reply and attach the contractor invoice summary from Greenscape Solutions and the dash camera clips. She thanks me and says she will forward everything to the auditor. Sunday is quiet again. I spend the day doing normal things, groceries and laundry and yard work. It feels good to not be dealing with HOA drama for a change. Around noon, I notice a car parked across the street. It is Brenda's white sedan. She is sitting in the driver's seat, staring at my house. I grab my phone and take a photo. Then I call the management company emergency line. The voicemail says to leave a message and someone will call back within 24 hours. I leave a message explaining that Brenda is parked outside my house and I am concerned she is harassing me in violation of her suspension. I also text the attorney. He replies immediately. Call the police non-emergency line and report it as suspicious activity. I do. The dispatcher says an officer will drive by. 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulls up. The officer talks to Brenda. She drives away. The officer comes to my door and asks if I am having an issue with a neighbor. I explain the whole situation, including the suspension and the board meeting. He takes notes and says he will include it in his report. He also says if she comes back, I should call again. I thank him and he leaves. Monday morning, I get an email from the board president. The subject line says reimbursement request response. I open it. The email says the board has reviewed my request and determined that reimbursement is not warranted because the enforcement actions were taken in good faith and the procedural errors were unintentional. I read it again. Good faith. Unintentional. I forward it to the attorney. He calls me immediately. That is garbage, he says. She committed fraud. That is not a procedural error. He says I have two options. I can accept the board's decision and move on, or I can file a small claims case to recover my costs. He says small claims is cheap and fast, and I have strong documentation. He also says the audit results might give me more ammunition. I ask what he recommends. He says wait for the audit, and if it shows what we think it shows, use that as leverage to reopen the reimbursement discussion. If the board still refuses, file the small claims case. I agree. Tuesday, I get a call from the auditor. She introduces herself and says she has been reviewing the HOA financial records. She asks if I have time to talk. I say yes. She says she has found several discrepancies that match the pattern I identified. She says there are multiple line items for landscaping expenses that do not have corresponding vendor invoices. She says the total amount is closer to $6,000, not $4,000. She also says there are discrepancies in other budget categories, including maintenance and compliance. She asks if I have any information about who had access to the financial records and who approved the expenses. I tell her Brenda was the landscaping committee lead, and she also served as compliance chair. The auditor makes a note and says she will include that in her report. She says the report will be finished by the end of the week and presented to the board the following Monday. She thanks me for my time and hangs up. Wednesday, I get a text from one of the homeowners I met at the board meeting. She says the neighborhood group chat is blowing up because someone leaked a draft of the audit report. She says people are furious. She asks if I have seen it. I say no. She sends me a screenshot. It is a summary page from the report. It lists the total discrepancies as $6,200. It identifies Brenda Collins as the primary person responsible for approving the questionable expenses. It recommends that the board file a complaint with the management company and consider legal action to recover the funds. I stare at the screen. This is bigger than I thought. Thursday, I get an email from the board president. The subject line says Emergency Board Meeting Notice. The email says there will be an emergency meeting on Saturday to discuss the audit report. It says all homeowners are invited to attend. It says the meeting will start at 10 in the morning. I reply and confirm I will be there. The attorney texts me and says he will be there too. He says this is the end game. If the board handles it right, Brenda is done. If they try to cover it up, the homeowners will revolt. Saturday morning, I arrive at the clubhouse early. The parking lot is already full. I park on the street and walk in. The room is packed. Every chair is taken, and people are standing along the walls. The board president is at the front table with the other board members. The auditor is there too, sitting off to the side with a laptop. The board president calls the meeting to order and says the purpose of the meeting is to review the audit report and discuss next steps. He introduces the auditor and asks her to present her findings. She stands and pulls up a slide deck on the projector screen. She goes through the summary, the discrepancies, the missing invoices, and the recommended actions. The room is silent. When she finishes, the board president asks if there are any questions. Half the room raises their hands. The first question is from the woman I met at the last meeting. She asks if Brenda will face any consequences beyond losing her title. The board president says the board is reviewing all options, including a formal complaint to the management company and potential legal action. Another homeowner asks if the missing funds will be recovered. The board president says that depends on the outcome of the investigation. A third homeowner asks if anyone else on the board knew about the discrepancies. The board president says no, the board was not aware until the audit. Someone in the back yells that the board should have caught it sooner. The board president does not respond. The attorney stands and asks to speak. The board president hesitates, then nods. The attorney says the audit makes it clear that there was a pattern of financial misconduct tied to selective enforcement. He says the board has a legal obligation to act decisively. He says if the board does not file a formal complaint and take steps to recover the funds, the homeowners have the right to recall the board and elect new leadership. The room erupts in applause. The board president bangs his gavel and asks for order. The attorney sits down. The board president says the board will vote on whether to file a formal complaint to the management company and pursue recovery of the missing funds. He asks for a motion. One of the board members makes the motion, another seconds it. The vote is unanimous. The board president says the complaint will be filed this week. He also says Brenda Collins is permanently banned from holding any HOA leadership position or enforcement role. He asks if there are any objections. No one objects. The meeting ends. I stay to talk to other homeowners. Several of them thank me for pushing the issue. One of them says if I had not documented everything and stood up to Brenda, none of this would have come out. I tell him it was not just me, it was the attorney and the management company and the auditor. He says sure, but I was the one who started it. We exchange contact information and agree to stay in touch. On the way out, I see Brenda's car in the parking lot. She is sitting in the driver's seat again, staring straight ahead. I walk past without looking at her. The attorney catches up to me and says he just got a text from the management company. The board attorney has withdrawn from representing the association and put it in writing. He says the board is panicking because they have to answer homeowners with no cover. I ask what that means for me. He says it means you won, completely. The HOA stops selective enforcement after complaints pile up. Brenda gets stripped of access to the portal admin tools. The board has no choice but to clean house. Monday morning, I get an email from the management company. The subject line says, Account Update. The email says, my account has been credited for all disputed fees, including the landscaping assessment and the guest parking fine. It says the credit totals $290. It also says the board has approved a reimbursement of $300 for my legal consultation and time. The email includes a check mailing date. I forward it to the attorney. He replies with a thumbs up emoji. Tuesday, I check the neighborhood group chat. Someone has posted a screenshot of the HOA budget portal. Brenda's name is no longer listed as an administrator. Her favorite fee gets proven imaginary in the ledger. The landscaping assessment line item has been removed entirely. Someone else posts a photo of a new sign at the neighborhood entrance. It says Lakeview Crest Homeowners Association, not Parking Compliance Association, just Homeowners Association. People are celebrating. I sit on the porch with my brother and tell him the whole story is over. He asks if I am going to stay in the neighborhood. I tell him yes, it is home now, and the HOA is not perfect, but at least the worst part is gone. He grins and says I should run for the board. I laugh and tell him absolutely not. I have had enough HOA drama for a lifetime. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.